It's getting really bad for the Chinese economy. Today, Moody has officially downgraded the credit outlook for China, Hong Kong, and Macau in 2 days. While this is expected, it does tell us that China's future and its market is doomed. Welcome to China Insider, I'm David Zhang. It's over for foreign investments in China and the Chinese economy is doomed. No, this is not an exaggeration. Amid a rising new mysterious disease, lack of foreign investment, lack of export, manufacturing going down, political radicalism within the Chinese Communist Party, there's really only one here to blame, and that's the CCP and Xi Jinping. So today's news about Moody downgrading China's economic future outlook is simply taking a photo of an already burning castle. It's crumbling down. In my previous videos on the Chinese economy, I keep stressing this one concept, which is that under the CCP, there is a political umbrella or a political prison in which everything has to be dictated based on the policy of the CCP, rather than rationality of the market or the economy. In order to revive the Chinese economy, you'd have to remove the political cage, aka the party, and that means destroying the CCP in the process. And that's the ultimate way. So it seems Moody's downgrading of China's credit outlook is simply saying the quiet part out loud, which is that everybody knows, nobody's saying it correctly apparently, that China's economic future is simply going to go downwards. It's going to keep declining, and it's a downward spiral from this point on. And also, no matter how many foreign executives and business leaders tried to sit down and have dinner with Xi Jinping, deep down, everybody knows in their heart that there is no future for foreign investments in China. Now, you might be thinking, this is just one agency downgrading the credit rating, and there are plenty of others who are still going with China. So is it really that bad? Well, before I break it down to you, here's my sponsor segment. What I'm recommending for you today is the Salhwasu comforting set known as Korea's National Essence. This is a really quality brand, what I like to call the Porsche of skincare. It's loved by Korean celebrity like Song Hye-kyo as well as Blackpink member Rosé. However, there are many different fake or knockoff versions of this gift set. We got it directly from the manufacturer in Korea, so this is 100% authentic. This 6-piece gift set focuses on rehydration, repairing your skin damage, moisturization, as well as plenty of issues with defending against skin aging as well as skin tinting, balancing the skin's natural oil and moisture level. And because the packaging is so beautifully done and exquisite, this will be a wonderful gift even if you're not using it for yourself. So in this holiday season, it will be the best gift for your loved one, especially your wife, your girlfriend, or somebody who is really into skincare. So click the link in the description to get a 15% off, or you can use my code to enjoy the same discount on this product and many more in the Blueberry Quality Product Shop. And you can also get free shipping if you spend $70 or more in the United States. And so definitely check it out, because this set was sold out during Black Friday. So if you really need this, make sure to place your order as soon as possible. All right, back to the video. Let's break this down. First, Moody's announcement targets not the current rating, but rather the future outlook of this. It says, growing evidence that the government and public sector will need to provide more financial support to local and state-owned enterprises, which brings downside risks to China's fiscal and economic conditions. Now, Moody also added that it also reflects increased risks associated with structurally and persistently lower medium-term economic growth and continued downsizing of the real estate sector. What this basically means is saying that Xi Jinping leading China in its current state, focusing on so-called national security over everything else, and basically neglecting the free market state. I know, shocking, right? In a communist country that they would neglect such thing. And in this process, they've destroyed the future of China's economy. And because in this current state, the market won't be able to fix itself, there's going to be more state intervention from the CCP. In turn, that's going to further alienate the private sector and small businesses, which contribute to the market overturn in other countries. So more state policies will be enacted, and it always does in China. Now, China since 2021 has done extensive damage to its private sectors. If you recall, there was the Alibaba crackdown, then there was the Didi, the ride-sharing app crackdown, then there was private tutoring crackdown in China. All these are private sectors, so it completely destroyed the confidence of business owners and business investors into China's private sector. And since then, the central government has tried 200 to 300 different points in total to try these so-called actionable points to try to revive the economy, but it's done nothing. It's basically trying to apply a band-aid onto a gaping wound in the middle of your chest. And once people lost confidence due to the policies, corruption, the draconian COVID measures that happened for 3 years, they stopped spending, they stopped buying, they stopped investing, and they basically started saving up their money. And those that are in the private sector have lost interest in keep going. Essentially, everybody in China is fearful for the next political storm. Now, Xi Jinping's answer to this is creating more committees and task forces to focus on the economy, But that really doesn't solve the fundamental problem, which is the party itself. That entity needs to go away before you can restore China's economy. At the end of October, the Standing Committee for the National People's Congress in China originally issued a 1 trillion yuan worth of government bonds, and that's about 141 billion US dollars, to try to rescue the Chinese economy. But that actually added a fiscal deficit for about 3.8%. Traditionally, they've maintained this 3%, and that's where the margin seems to stay at. In fact, they rarely exceed that 3%. The only time it was during the 2020 pandemic. Now, in addition to that, they also issued 2 trillion yuan worth of local bonds for local governments because of their extreme amounts of hidden debt. Now, you might be wondering, where are they getting this money from? Well, they're printing it. Of course, they weren't making any money because at this point, the economy had spiraled downwards already. They weren't exporting as much. Now, most of China's risk actually is in the real estate sector because that accounts for 25 to 30% of the overall economy of China. And most of it is tied into each province's local government. And the real estate market, as we speak, is looking worse and worse. There is zero return on investments right now because people are simply not buying. So that market is going downwards as well at the same time. It's a great indicator for the overall economy. And that's because most of the local governments make their profits from land sales to developers who in turn develop many different projects. But of course, because they started going bankrupt, those homes become unfinished and nobody's buying them. And there's no homes to be returned in terms of making money or making a profit for the government in the end. And this cycle has brought catastrophic effects in terms of the local economy, which in the end all feeds into that overall debt crisis in China. And it's called hidden debt. Now, some scholars studying the area of how much hidden debt China really holds, they use different data, right? There's some submitted to the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank, but certainly the official data from China, they don't account for the scale in which hidden debt is taking place in China, simply because they don't want to be embarrassed by the amount of reckless spending that's been done over the years. According to the IMF and the Wall Street banks, they estimate the total outstanding off-balance sheet government debt is around $7 trillion to $11 trillion in China. Now, there's $1 trillion, not yuan. I like to use the analogy, it's like the hidden battery that China's been running off of for a while. And this battery can hold a lot. It's a big battery, but it still has its limit or when it depletes. And this hidden debt issue is really a long-term issue that stems all the way back from the reform and opening up, so about 40 to 50 years ago. Now, before we talk about that, there's also other factors like reckless borrowing. There's manufacturing and export, which I mentioned, they're leaving, foreign investments leaving China. You also have things like non-performing loans with the Belt and Road project. So you're spending too much money, you're not getting any in return. And trillions of dollars spent on these dead loans, of course, are used for buying influence, but they're not really generating any revenue here. And of course, there's also a large-scale capital flight from China. So funds are leaving, currency exchange, they're depleted in their US dollar reserves. All of these factors contribute to the overall environment right now. Now, Moody's announcement today is really a watershed moment for the regime because it is now clear that everybody around the world knows what the state of China is like. They can no longer hide it. Let's talk about this hidden debt. For anyone who's looked into the Chinese economy for a while, you can really define it in two moments, right? It was the before reform and opening up and after reform and opening up. So before reform and opening up, nobody had money. Everybody was living this socialism life, right? No personal private assets. Once reform opening up happened, it was an indication that there was an explosive growth in China within a period of 10 to 20 years. Within that period, they experienced a huge, very drastic change in the Chinese market in where you have foreign investments, you have a huge amounts of earning from exports, you have many ways of making money. And so you can sustain a huge amount of spending that way because you have the funds to back it up. However, today the opposite is happening, which is that foreign cash is drying up, investments drying up. You can no longer export to many countries or not in the scale of before. You have competitors like India, Vietnam, who's taking away your manufacturing sector. And all of these things combined with the current ongoing trade war against the United States, especially with the high-tech industry involved, they really create a big demand. But at this point, you have a mounting debt problem that's catching up to you. There's also an overall lack of domestic spending. There's no eagerness here, which is a point I just talked about earlier, because people are not confident in the government and the system anymore. In other words, all of the benefits of the reform and opening up, they're starting to show their weakness, which is that you don't have the workforce anymore. You have an aging population. You don't have the trust and the credibility within the international environment, where back then you had Bill Clinton, who was able to get you into that elite circle, right, through the accession to the WTO, which granted you a lot of status that helped you to launch the economy forward. But today, a lot of those things are coming back and they're retracted. So facing all of this, Xi Jinping last month came to San Francisco and met with Biden in hoping to get something out of the United States to lower the pressure on the Chinese economy. But today, Gina Raimondo has actually come out declaring basically that the high-tech trade war will continue and they're going to double down on this. So listen to this.
Huawei's new smartphone that was released a couple of months ago to know
when
that
I was in China.
Yes. Oh, look at that.
Thank you very much. Which are just where we are ahead of China. They're capable of doing very bad things, and we're going to deny the entire country this class of equipment. Is industry on board? I mean, yes, but they're in the business of making money. Every time I take an action, it denies them revenue. My own view is that industry, newsflash, democracy is good for your businesses. Rule of law here and around the world is good for your businesses. So it might make for a tough quarterly shareholder call, but in the long run, it's worth you working with us to defend our country's national security. This is the biggest threat we've ever had. And we need to meet the moment. The world needs us to manage our relationship with China responsibly to avoid escalation. We've got to do all that, but make no mistake about it. China's not our friend, and we need to be eyes wide open about the extent of that threat.
They're basically going to be harder on China when it comes to the cutting edge technology. Now, so if China loses the competition in this area, which I think they're already on the track of because of the domestic instability and the economy anyways, they basically lose the entire new Cold War. And that's why there's a desperation right now to draw foreign investments back to China. Xi Jinping just went to Shanghai, which is a parallel to this so-called Southern Tour by Deng Xiaoping in 1993. Now, Deng in 1993 did this to continue the reform and opening up in China. But Xi Jinping today, he went to Shanghai, and it's pointless because the current condition was largely created by his policies, which destroyed the process of reform and opening up for the last 20 years. And so what's the point of going to Shanghai if everybody knows that you're going to continue going down this path of essentially destroying the economy side of things for national security and policies of the CCP? So his version of the Shanghai tour was basically like a deer in the headlight, doesn't know what to do. And of course, part of that is not just Xi, right? It's like I said, a culmination. It's an accumulation of problems that has mounted since the day of the CCP. It's always going to be party first and political ideologies first, which means that the economy can have to serve as almost like a base to feed into power rather than something that's focused on as a system. At the end of the day, of course, if people are starving, they starve. Xi Jinping wants to repeat the Mao Zedong era. People doesn't need private assets or private entrepreneurs to do things. He can simply do everything with state-owned issues and policies. But the point is here, that's decelerating too much, right? And you can't have that happen within like 3 years. And so you wonder, maybe the question is, why doesn't Xi Jinping just halt whatever he's doing right now and go back to reform and opening up? Well, the problem right now is the conditions, like I said, for reform and opening up is over. Everything has gone back now to catch up to Xi Jinping. And these are what has built up over the last 40 years. And even as the country is dealing with a huge mounting debt and lots of other problems, the core problem of it all is the party itself. So unless they can remove the party, there's no way to solve that problem. And of course, Xi Jinping's fear of losing his power, a repeat of 1989. What if you open up too much and you draw out more desire for democracy, for drastic political changes in China? You can't have that. I just talked about how there's a accumulation of spending issues, right? Reckless spending, lack of fiscal policies involved. Well, for the 40 to 50 years in the past leading up to today, China has done this. And according to the former chairman of CICC International, he says that China's overall debt reached 600 trillion yuan at the end of 2017. And then analysis for the post-pandemic era show that the overall debt is definitely higher, which means that it could be in the 900 or 800 trillion yuan range, which is a huge amount of money or debt. The CCP doesn't really know anything about the economy. All they know is one thing, is printing money. So if you know a bit about the economy stuff, you know that if you overprint money, right, you have too much money in the system, then that's going to cause inflation and potentially even hyperinflation because, well, the more money you have, they're going to raise the price because the demand for goods is going to be higher. And if you don't have the proper supplying for goods, and then obviously you're going to run into a huge problem. But for the last 40 years, China did have the demand for goods and they were able to almost like hide things away by printing more money because the demand was there. But today the demand is not, right? And that's why there's a deflation period in China. So when you no longer have demand and then you're still overprinting money, what happens? Well, in the communist system, it doesn't lead to inflation that easily because, like, remember, they're a state-owned system. Basically, you can push things down, right? So they can control inflation and control interest rate because the Communist Party. Compare that to the United States, right? You can't simply print more money because there needs to be a regulatory system involved and a responsible fiscal mindset where if you print too much money, the dollar is going to decrease its value, and that leads to a huge amount of problems. But because China's currency, again, its value is determined based on what the government needs, it doesn't have these many restrictions, and so it can almost do things that way. But that leads to a bigger problem, right? Is how long can you keep printing money before it catches up to you? So we can look at two areas, finance and real estate. So Zhongzhu Group, a shadow banking giant, has 3.2 trillion yuan in debt. Evergrande has 2.4 trillion yuan in debt. And Country Garden has 1.4 billion yuan in debt. And basically, they've been bailed out every single time until it's gotten so big that even the government doesn't want to bail them out anymore. Because guess what? We're reaching that point. If they keep printing more money, it's going to be an explosion. And it's over. China's going to be done. And that's why Moody did this today. All right, after my ramble, I hope you understood that a little bit. It was very confusing for me as well, but I hope this cleared up some things. If you enjoyed the content, leave a like, comment below your thoughts on today's topic, and let me know if you think China's economy is going to collapse within the next 2 years. And subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. All right, I'm David Zhang. This is China Insider. We'll see you next time.